my professors, probably one of the peak experiences of my college experience was when I was taking my strength and conditioning class, and my professor made me basically max my bench.
All right. I didn't even get your name.
Bernardo Costa.
Is that like a Latin name or what?
Yeah, so it's Brazilian. So I grew up. I grew up mostly in Texas. I'm from Brazil. I was born in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, and I moved here when I was 4 to Texas for my dad's job. You know, he got a job at Sabre, and so we made the move here because economically Brazil wasn't looking too promising, and it ended up being a good move. Especially with how. So I've been here. I basically am Americanized. What some people is Brazilian American, I suppose, but I just got my U.S. citizenship probably like 2 years ago, so fairly recently.
To be honest about that, I've been really lazy with mine because I'm just like, oh, I got a green card, and I'm just like, not really trying to worry about it.
And it didn't change anything for me.
It really doesn't, and I get like so pressured to like do it. I'm just like, listen, you don't understand. I mean, you can do basically everything, but it's just like I can't vote or travel.
Yeah, you can't. And honestly, like, I haven't been too good about that, either. So I definitely need to exercise that right, but I haven't. So shouldn't admit that, but whatever.
I think not this year, but maybe next year, I'm going to try to get the whole citizenship going and get that out there.
Yeah.
I've been stalling it for so many years, dude.
Yeah, it's hard, man. I wouldn't have gotten it if it weren't for my parents, because they're the ones who paid the lawyers and everything like that to do the process. So
yeah,
it can be time consuming for sure, and expensive if you do it through a lawyer. So
does that make it a lot easier to? Does that make it? Do you get it faster if you do it through a lawyer, or what?
I don't know if you get it faster, but I know that they did it for the peace of mind of doing the process correctly. Just because when you're doing it yourself, you don't necessarily know all the nuances and stuff like that. So the lawyer was really there to function as kind of a guide and a peace of mind to make sure that we go through the process correctly. Because it's really easy to mess those things up. So.
I might actually have to do that next year. So because I can get the hang of it, because I don't really, when I try to fill it out a few times, I'm just like, oh, so many questions. I don't remember these.
I know. What's going on? Yeah.
But so that's pretty cool that we're actually both foreign. I actually came to America when I was, I can never really remember the age, 7 or 8. So it's around those two. But I was originally born in Africa, West Africa.
Okay.
So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, Sierra Leone, Freetown, and I moved here in 2002, and I've been here since. It's been about 18 years. Yeah, so as you can tell by my voice, I'm very American.
No accent or anything like that, yeah.
Exactly.
I'm the same way. I have an accent in Portuguese, an American accent in Portuguese, but not, in English, so...
Yeah, like the funny thing is when I speak my native tongue, it's just like it sounds more American in my native tongue than how it should be.
Yeah, people tell me that all the time when I speak Portuguese, like native speakers. They're like, oh, you have a American accent. And I'm like, I don't even know how, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of know the struggles. So you moved to Texas, and you've been there ever since?
Yeah, I've been in Texas in the same area ever since. Haven't really changed much. I guess going to bodybuilding to make it more relevant. I started bodybuilding about 10 years ago, around 2010, when I was still in high school. And
how old are you?
I'm 27 now.
Oh, okay. I'm out.
I just turned 27 3 days ago, so.
Okay, gotcha. I'm like 5 years ago.
Yeah, and so so I got into bodybuilding about 10 years ago, and it wasn't even like me purposely getting into bodybuilding. I just wanted to fill out. Basically, I wanted to be I wanted people to stop calling me lanky. And I just wanted to put a little bit more size on, to mostly just be treated with a little bit more respect, to be honest with you. I think that was my motivation. And I told myself, oh, I'll just fill out and I'll be happy at like 220. And then I got to 220. I was like, I get 240. I got to 240 and I was like, I think I'll be happy at 260. And when I started getting to like the 260s up to the 280s, I was like, okay, people are telling me I'm really big, and I go, people are always asking how much I'm benching. So I think that part of my ego has been fed enough at this point where I'm more focused on the quality and proportions of it more now, so.
That's interesting. We actually had this exact same conversation in Mike's thing where we talked about like the idea of like body dysmorphia. Did you feel any sort of that while you were getting heavier and heavier?
Yeah, absolutely. And I still do to this day. I think everyone who gets the size that we are, the reason we want to get motivated to get to that size is because obviously we don't feel like the current size is satisfactory enough for us, which is why we keep pushing. And I mean, it can be a good and a bad thing, like I really like the saying that satisfaction is the key to mediocrity, because you definitely, if you become satisfied, you sort of become stagnant. But at the same time, on the other end, it can also work against you because you forget to enjoy what you have worked so hard for, stop and smell the roses, so to say. So, you got to find that middle ground.
It's so weird that you mentioned that. I don't think anyone I've talked to recently actually like mentioned that, because I always think of it as like, yeah, we try to get bigger, we try to get muscular as we go, but it's like such a short-lived victory that like every time we get to a certain goal, we're just like, oh, okay, this is cool, but what's next? And we just keep on going and going. It's like a never-ending cycle of like unsatisfaction. Like you said, it can be a good thing if you know how to properly channel it to where it's like, okay, I know I'm pretty big and I'm never satisfied, but I'll just keep on doing what I have to do. But it does get to a certain point where you have to like go from just bodybuilding in general, and then to like, where else can I apply this to like other parts of my life that can be a lot more beneficial? And that regards to that topic, did you apply that exact same lesson that you learned towards other parts of your life?
Oh yeah. I think when I started bodybuilding, it taught me that a lot of anything that you achieve with goals and everything like that is mental. And I think a lot of the things that we are able to achieve, it's like, they say, there's another good saying, a patient man can achieve anything, right? So I think patience is a really big prerequisite for a lot of things that you have to do, because it's sort of the marker that allows you to keep trying even when you fail, because inevitably we all fail. So if you don't have the patience to put up with that failure, you'll find yourself, going away from what actually makes you grow. And I think bodybuilding sort of taught me to associate the feeling of being uncomfortable with growth, right? Like when we go into the gym, we're looking for that stimulus, that uncomfortable stimulus, that burning sensation, and that physical, fatigue that we experience. We know that's a good thing because that's giving us a stimulus that we want. And in real life, it's just like that. When you're really on the verge of quitting, or when you're really scared to do something, it probably means that you're on the right track to do it. Because if you're not scared to do it, you're not getting uncomfortable. And I think if you're not getting uncomfortable, you're not challenging yourself to grow. So yeah, it's definitely allowed me to apply it to a lot more things in my life, and especially like with prep and whatnot. Once I did my first prep, while I was in school, in the middle of taking full-time classes and working and stuff like that. So for me, it was really scary at the beginning, because I had been so used to this really leisure lifestyle of just going to school, going home and playing, like World of Warcraft, going to bed, whatever, and then and then that's it. Whereas it started changing my mentality of almost wanting to chase that busyness, that pain to get through real life, because I saw how much more it developed me as a person. So when I was going to school, a lot of the times I would kind of be like, oh, I'll just compete later or whatever. But at one point in time, I just kind of had an epiphany, and I was just kind of like, you know what? It's never going to be a perfect time.
Yeah.
So if I don't do this now, I'll probably just never end up doing it. But after that first prep, and just being busy from basically 5 a.m. all the way up to the time going to bed, when I did kind of back off things, when school kind of ended, it made my threshold of what was really fatiguing mentally increase. So it made everything else seem so much easier. You know what I mean? Like after you can do everything that you normally do, but you're not starving anymore and you're not battling that mental fatigue, it puts you on this other level. Like, man, at least this isn't as bad as when I'm
prepping.
So yeah, it definitely taught me a lot of things.
Yeah. I've also came to the exact same realization with that. What did you go to school for?
Exercise science.
Nice. And I'm guessing from when you started working out in 2010, that sort of led you towards exercise science?
Yeah. So I was originally planning to do the whole biology route, go to medical school, become a doctor and everything like that. And it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because I was originally planning to go to SMU.
Mm-hmm.
And when we saw how much it was going to be financially, we just couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to Northlake, like a local community college, and ended up just doing my basics there, getting my associates in science. But those 2 years really solidified kind of like what I wanted to do. And so I changed my sort of mindset from going into biology. After probably taking 1 or 2 biology classes, I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I just have no interest in this. So I was already working out at that time, and I realized, well, I can still ultimately, I think the reason why anyone should want to be a doctor, at least, is to help people, or to be able to make a positive net difference. And when you really think about it, being a doctor and being a trainer, or getting exercise science, they're not very different from each other in terms of your ability to help people. It's just one is through actual pharmaceutical medicine, whereas the other one is more of a physical medicine. So I was kind of took that mentality of I'd rather take that stance of applying that physical medicine instead, because I do feel like it's so much more beneficial to be preventative than it is to be reactive with health and everything like that. But it was also a means to keep pursuing the lifestyle that I like to pursue. I knew that I liked bodybuilding. I knew that I liked the process of it and everything like that. And getting the degree in exercise science just made sense for me, because I felt like I could use that to directly grow myself, my own knowledge, to help me with bodybuilding. So it was an investment that I saw was probably better off than just doing something, doing the doctor route, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we seem to share the exact similar experience. I went to school for business administration, and it was very interesting, but at the same time, I kind of like lost the reason for why I was doing it. I mean, I worked at a job which paid for it, and I could just like do business or cooking or anything like that so I can get a degree. But inevitably, I came to the realization that like I don't really like this. It was just like not enjoyable. I wasn't really enjoying it as I should, and I actually quit that. But at the same time, like I might just wait a year or two, and inevitably go for exercise science and see how I go with that, because I have I have passion for like fitness related stuff, diets and all that stuff. I'm so much more interested in that if I were to like sit in school or be in college, I would literally pay attention. Where with business, I would just be like, Just like fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
Yeah,
no purpose for me to do it, and it's just weird. So I had to like cut that out. What
yeah,
was your
absolutely.
experience like in school as someone who was into lifting weights? How did other people react to you as an individual? What like obstacles did you face with that?
To be honest with you, I think kind of what we were talking about as far as obstacles, kind of what we were talking about, where people don't really expect us to be intelligent or be well spoken,
Mm,
uh, or not have anything deeper to say. I think they think that whatever runs through our head is just basically protein shakes and curls and stuff, and you know that's how they stereotype us. Um,
mm,
so I would say that was one of the obstacles, but I would say it was kind of very small of an obstacle because by the time I was already at North Lake College, I was already I think uh, big enough for, or I guess fit enough looking where people kind of it commanded respect from people.
mm,
Um, I get a lot of I would get a lot of people approach me and just want to get to know me. Definitely, you know, a lot of girls trying to distract and stuff like that, and
mm.
um, just all of that. But I think ultimately, it you know, even though there was that sort of expectancy of us being shallow, I think it did even out because people saw what I had already done with my body, and they knew that there was something to it, at least, um,
Mm.
because they knew it took some level of dedication. But like, for example, I would surprise my teachers a lot of the time when I would start speaking because they wouldn't expect me, to be the way that I am. So I think on the teacher side of things, it definitely that the shallow was even more apparent for them um, than other like students or something. By the time I got to UTA, when I got to UTA about it was 2015, I had basically really gotten into bodybuilding at that point, and by that time I was right at the beginning of being a competitive bodybuilder. So I started getting noticed around campus, and people would approach me and stuff like that. I'd always be at the school gym and stuff, so people were pretty nice to me. Um, so I would say overall it's been a positive thing. I think people see what you have and they want a piece of it, or they want to find out how, and so it enables that interest.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like a mystery. It's like having like a superhero to look up to, but it's instead of like watching like a movie or anything, it's like they're right there. So
Yeah,
I can sentiment on that response on how like people would view individuals who are muscular and have like a interesting physique to show, because it's not every day that you would walk around and it's like there's this dude there who's like jacked out of his mind, and all of a sudden it's like veins everywhere. It's like, oh, this looks like one of those comic book kind of guys.
yeah, and it didn't help that I would carry my gallon of water everywhere with my
Yeah, right.
my 6-pack backpack meals and everything like that, because I would while taking my classes. So I even had one of my professors, probably one of the peak experiences of my college experience was when I was taking my strength and conditioning class, and my
Mm.
professor made me basically max my bench in front of the whole class. So we went to the gym, and it was probably the low key the best experience I had bragging about my bench press, but probably the most I'll ever bench just because of the adrenaline from everyone watching me.
That's always a pretty good feeling.
Yeah.
I love that. So how much was it?
450 at that time.
Oh,
I don't know if I haven't maxed in a long time.
yeah.
So I don't know what I would be at right now.
Wonder how many girls wet themselves after that.
I had one of my friends come up to me and he was like, "Man, those girls over there, they were looking, man." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't know.
exactly. That is
I was like,
actually
"Oh,
exactly how I feel.
okay."
Funny that you brought that up. That's exactly how I feel. Like, I think people who look at individuals who are like all into weightlifting and like bodybuilding, they tend to think, actually, hold on. But that is exactly the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, is that they think, hey, you work out, they feel like you do it just to get girls' attention. You do it just to get other people's attention. So girls automatically, like when they look at a guy that like that's either you or me or Mike or anyone like that, they're always just like, oh, he's just works out because he just likes himself too much. And he's very narcissistic and he likes attention. And then it's a good thing, but it's also like a really bad thing to like, I mean, from my experience, it's also like a really bad thing as well, because they also are intimidated just from the looks aspect. They're just like, oh, wow, he's gross, he's this and that and stuff like that. I have stuff to say. They're just like, they say that in public, but usually not when they're alone.
Yeah.
But what was that like for you as an experience? Did you feel that same way as well?
What specifically? Like just women?
What was dating wise? What was it like for you?
Oh man. So I've been in the same relationship now for like 7 years. So I've been with the same woman since I was 20, and we met at Northlake. So I was still like that. But like when I didn't have that stereotypical college experience of me, going out and partying. I've always been like a low key type of person. So like it was never like, yeah, I'd get approached a lot, and more than anything, it's just having to, like if you are in a long-term relationship, having to make your partner feel secure in the fact that you're not going to like say yes to these other, females that are hitting on you or something like that. And, my girlfriend's Latina, so it can, how they are. So
I've experienced it. I can definitely tell like royalty and family is a big thing to work.
Yeah, and being from Brazil, I have those same values. So I was never one of those people who wanted to be in these, short-term relationships. And I really think that if anything, being in the long-term relationship sort of benefited me from the aspect that I no longer had to focus my energy on my love life or anything like that. It was like, okay, I've got that taken care of. I don't really have to mess with that. And now I can focus on my goals and growth and everything like that without being distracted by those kind of, shallow, petty things.
Yes. That's interesting that you said that. Yeah, I've actually ended relationships because they get to a point where it's just like it becomes very distracting, and you tend to kind of like lose sight of your goals, because when it comes to me, I'm a very loving, caring individual. So if I have someone that I'm with, I tend to show that a lot more than I should. And when I do, it never gets reciprocated back. And I'm just like, okay, so I guess not. So usually I just end it there, because I know if I going through all this effort just to show how much I care about that individual and they don't really respond back in that way, there's really no point for me to continue this going further.
Right.
I've actually just learned this recently, because I've known it, but I've been ignoring. I've been ignoring it because I tend to go for the girls who I feel like they're broken and they need help.
Yeah.
Very caring person. And now I'm just like, you know what? No, just none of that anymore.
I always tell people, you have to find someone with the same like level of clinginess, so to say. So like, some people, they want that relationship where they can be detached from that person and then resume it later on or whatever. Other people, they want that, very close attention and so to say, kind of like love languages and everything like that, But I think ultimately it boils down to having the same values. When you guys have the same values, I think a lot of the times the core values, if they're there, you guys can work through a lot of the issues. Like I think really there's very few issues that you can't work through. I mean, obviously if like someone's disloyal or something like that, that can be really difficult. But I think a lot of the things that I see people break up for, it's like, man, you could have just sat down and figured this out with some communication. You know what I mean? So I think that's a lot of people are quick to run
Well, it's not just that, it's also our society kind of enforces that,
Mhm.
where there's lack of communication because majority of people are always on their phone, they're texting, they're doing everything else. Like, you don't really see people calling each other in order to get that, like, to hear what the other person's like talking about, what they're feeling, so they're not like, they don't miscommunicate. And you don't see people like being with each other closely because it's always like that. So there's always like the lack of interpersonal relationship when you have social media, you have your phone and all that. So that does ruin a lot of like relationships, because eventually
Oh yeah.
there's so many options out there available to that one individual that they could just find somebody else or something
Oh,
else
for sure.
by just looking at their phone. And
Yeah.
I think that's the issue.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, we've had our issues with that. But it's one of those things that, you know, it goes back to trust and security and everything like that, and communication. But yeah, it's you're right. And there's always that syndrome. Everyone always has that syndrome where the grass is greener on the other side. And I think people expect to find that one person that will completely basically alleviate that, and they'll never, you know, feel that feeling again.
And end up
But
being disappointed when they don't have that person, and it's like on to the next one. You ever watch Rick and Morty?
yeah,
There was an episode where they had an app on their phone, and then every like 5 seconds they'll find like a new lover, and then
hmm
they'll just leave the like the person they currently love right now, and just go to somebody else, and then just like keep on doing that. I'm just like, this is kind of what we're doing now.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's basically it, man. And it's, you know, with so many options, it's really easy to have that side of, oh man, well, and speculate, be like, well, what would it be like with this person, or what would it be with like this person, and all this and that. But in all reality, you know, you're always just trading a different set of problems for another.
Yeah, exactly.
So no matter what.
I agree. You seem more like an introvert. And I do notice a lot of us tend to have this one thing in common, because we're fucking weirdos. Um, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you into gaming?
I would say I grew up on video games. I mean, I still game to this day. When someone tells me that they're not into video games, I'm just like, how the hell do you live your life, man? Like, what
Yeah,
do you do in spare time? I still play World of Warcraft. Playing a lot of World of Warcraft Classic lately, uh, especially with this quarantine. It keeps me sane.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, but yeah, I've always been into gaming. I grew up on it.
What genres do you usually go for? Like MMORPGs, RPGs, shooting, or what?
It really depends, but I would say my biggest two are probably shooting and MMORPGs. Just because I played WoW for so long, I can't deny that. But you know, I'm like I'll play like Counter Strike or Squad. There's like Escape from Tarkov, things like that. Like more, I like when I do play shooters. There's I have my moods. So like sometimes I like my arcade shooters if I just want to kind of pick something up and put it down. But a lot of the times I like the military simulator shooters.
Yeah,
Just it feels so much more realistic. Like when you get a kill, it's so much more satisfying.
kind of like Call of Duty kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like Call of Duty, it's like you get like 20 kills each game, whereas like you play a military simulator and you're like, oh, I got one kill. It's, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
it's more of a challenge, so I think it makes it more rewarding.
yeah.
But
It's cool.
what about you?
So based on my experiences as a kid, I never really got into shooting because I was just always like, I'm not like anti-war or like anti-gun or whatever. I'm just like, I don't really need that. And it's always been really boring to me in terms of like shooting games. But when it comes to like MMOs, I've had my share of experiences.
Yeah, I saw you get kind of excited with the WoW. Did you ever play that at some point in time?
So I did. I played the trial version of it. And
Oh, okay.
like, I didn't even, it was like level 20 was like the highest you can go.
Yeah,
Like 2010 or 2008, whatever. And I got to like level 10. I was like, wow, this is kind of boring.
yeah.
I mean, I love the concept. It was really great, but it was just so vast of a world that I just couldn't just like sit there and then like have to like explore through all the region. And I had a friend who was like power leveling me, and for some reason I'm always behind my friends when I play these games, but then they're like
Right.
50, 40 levels like above me. I'm just like, dude, I just got this. We both just got this game. Why are you like level 50? And it's like, I don't know, man. I just played. I'm just like, what the hell?
Yeah, and they play it off like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, but really it's like their fifth character, and they're like, oh yeah,
Yeah, and then just cycle
ready.
around.
Yeah.
I played WoW. I played a game called Silk Road Online. That was probably one of my favorite.
I've heard of that. I never played it, but I heard that like kind of in that same kind of time with RuneScape and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. It was mainly focused on around the China trade route, which was with the silk and all that.
Right. Yeah.
Silk Road. So it was very interesting history lesson and something to learn. Like when I play MMORPGs or RPG games in general, my entire purpose of playing them, yeah, it's enjoyable, but it's also to kind of like understand the story, kind of like see what can be related towards real life versus what's not. And they do teach you a lot of things, as weird as it sounds. So
Yeah, they do.
yeah, like I've been very deeply into like RPGs for a long period of time, and it's the only thing I can kind of get into.
Yeah. Yeah, some people like to watch movies and TV shows, and it's like video games, it can be the same thing. It's just a way to take yourself out of reality for a little bit.
Yeah, just to kind of just relax and just enjoy that peace and quiet,
Yeah.
your own time and stuff like that. What are your hobbies?
So as far as hobbies, I don't know if I can even say that the guitar is a hobby anymore because I haven't picked it up in a while to be into that. But as far as hobbies, I would say bodybuilding takes a lot of it, as boring as that sounds. Most of the time that's what I have, time for is bodybuilding, everything that goes into it, the dieting. But I like to read, like self-improvement books. I don't know if that counts as a hobby.
I mean, I would say it is. I actually got a few of those in my apartment. I have a book by Corey Wayne. It's called How to Be a 3% Man. I got The Art of War by.
That's a good one, The Art of War. The Art of War, I mean, it's a good one, but I think people they overplay the applicability of it for like self-help. Like it's great, but it's like this dude was like a military commander, and it's teaching.
Yeah, it was all more just like tactical, but most of those psychologies in terms of war can actually be applied to like your overall like.
I've actually applied it to the video games, like when I'm actually in video games more than anything, but things like that, like Atomic Habits is one of my favorites. But anything that I can like read and feel like I grew out of it and that I can apply it to real life to make myself overall more efficient at my goals, I think is definitely something that I like to do. Music is a big hobby of mine. I've always been a big music listener. My dad basically raised me on music because his mother, my grandma, she's kind of like she used to be a famous singer in the 20s and 30s in Brazil, and she actually met her husband through like a radio show because he was the radio talk show host, and they fell in love and had my dad or whatever. So my dad is big into music. He plays a flute, he plays a drum. So I grew up playing, the trumpet, grew up playing guitar. Every once in a while I'll play around with the drums, but nothing serious. But just consuming and listening to music, I think is another big hobby of mine. Especially because it can change your state of mind so easily. So,
and to that, my compare to that would be like anime, for example. Like again, it's always about stories and like plots and like character development. It also makes you think a lot more than because when I was younger, the reason I personally think the reason why I sound like this is because when I was watching Yu-Gi-Oh, I had like the captions like on so I could read like the subtitles like while I was watching it in American like language. So I kind of sound like Yugi occasionally every so often. Like it's your move, Kaiba. So that's what I feel like kind of got me to sound the way that I did. And then also the fact that I was raised in like a white suburban neighborhood and I went to like all white school. So that also helped a lot. But I think mainly it's the anime.
It's the anime did it all.
Yeah,
Turned you into a weebo.
Yeah, it's like the total inner weeaboo. So yeah, that's pretty much it on that one. What do you
Just
like?
a buff weeboo.
I think like I purposely made it like that just to kind of just be jacked and be like, okay, I'm and I like anime.
No, just
Yeah, right. So it just works perfectly. But it's always just like such a relaxing thing to do when there's like a certain show going on. Again, I never got into like watching SpongeBob, watching like the Disney series and stuff like that, or whatever.
yeah.
It was just weird. There wasn't really a lot of thinking. You just sat there like a mindless drone, just looking at these. Like,
Yeah. Those shows are like just to like empty your mind, I guess, and just take yourself out of thinking.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I never really personally liked them. So you talked about your dad and how he has a great love for music. You also seem to have a really good connection with him. What impact did he have in your life towards like motivating you to become who you are today?
I think they've always been supportive of whatever I do. They never really set a standard for me as far as what I had to do or the things, or like the grades that I had to get or something like that. It was like I got good grades because I wanted to, and I liked making them proud. I just like that feeling of making people proud, that affirmation. But yeah, they've always just told me like, as long as you're doing what you're passionate about, like we're happy, you know what I mean? Like they don't have any sort of preconceived plans for me. Like, oh, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. Now, they introduce me to all of their friends, and they're like, oh yeah, this is my son, my baby son. Can you believe I made this? And or whatever. I'll like stand there awkwardly, and then they'll like have me flex, and I'll be like, and I'm still like really awkward about it. And, yeah, okay, can I go now? So yeah, but yeah, they've been great, man. I'm blessed to have supportive parents.
That's awesome. I'm also foreign as well, as we already discussed. In terms of like Americans as a whole, not to judge or anything like that, but do you feel that they're a little bit more, I don't want to say the word lazy, because they've had the experience of what it's like to be an American citizen, versus someone who's foreign who had to work a little bit more because they came from nothing and wanted to become the best possible version that they could? Do you think there's a distinct difference between a foreign person and then a natural born United States citizen? It's not going to be 100% in here and there. There's some.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like a lot of things. It's situational, because you hear stories about native people, still working hard, or I was watching like Jay Cutler video or whatever, and he talks about how his dad used to make him work at the farm and all this and that, and how he hated it, but in hindsight, that's what he attributed so much to his success, because he learned what hard work was from the beginning. So I think you can find an equal amount of situations between both categories. But I do think that as someone who's foreign, you have a little bit more of an appreciation, because you've seen sort of the two sides of the coin as far as culture.
Exactly.
People, a lot of the times people say, oh, well, he's not cultured, or he or she is cultured. And a lot of that is just the difference in perspective that you've experienced. Like I would say the biggest thing that I notice from foreign people to Americans is that, like, in American society, you're basically expected to like leave the house and fend for yourself as soon as you're like 18 or you become the age, and it's like you're seen as this sort of like inferior person if you stay with your parents, or if you live with them and you don't move out right away, things like that. So And growing up in America, that's something I struggled with too, because, you know, being with my parents and being closer to them than I would say, you know, most American people are, I had that difference in perspective. And I think, you know, like my sister didn't move out until she was around 27 or 28, and I'm still, you know, with my parents, but basically I help take care of them because they're kind of at that age where they need that. And I don't mind it at all. I don't see it as anything negative or any, and for a while, you know, I struggled with kind of seeing myself as inferior because, you know, here I was in my 20s still living with my parents and all this and that. But especially with stuff like this, like the shutdown, I've realized I've only been, you know, super fortunate to do that because now I have, you know, I have money saved up and I have, you know, a cushion and everything like that. And we have each other to kind of support as a team. You know, I support them when they need the help and they support me. So I think the biggest difference is that I notice isn't so much of the hard work or the effort, but of how American parents tend to almost give a disadvantage to their kids by forcing them to move out. And if they want to move out, you know, more power to them. Some people do, but some people genuinely don't, and they get forced to start paying their bills right away in the situation. They get in debt and everything like that. It just kind of starts their whole life a little bit off at the wrong foot. So I think that's the biggest difference.
Mm-hmm. And it also doesn't help that the idea you've been with your parents when you were born all the way to like 17 and 18 based on when you go to college. All of a sudden, you have to go to college, and then your parents are not around anymore. So that leaves a huge amount of stress on you because you've always just been so cared for throughout that entire period that when you go to college, you kind of just feel like I can finally just let loose. And I think that's where most of the issues tends to stem from, excuse me, that they're just, again, left on their own to kind of fend and do what they can. And for some others, they're very successful with it. Some of them do eventually come back home and be like, hey, mom, I can't do this. But the good thing about that is, like, as American parents, when they have their kids and the kids kind of just like go off to college and they end up wanting to come back, they always are more than welcome to bring the kids back in there. But it gets a little murky when they don't finish what they need to do in college. It's like you're demanded to finish college or you won't come home.
Right.
So it just puts that extra stress on them. And it just makes it so hard for them to be able to kind of have like that interpersonal parental relationship.
Yeah, and if you ask any other culture, you know, like usually the process with any other culture is you don't even like move out until, you know, you're married and you've got that established, and then you guys move out and everything like that. And even then, in some cultures, like in Brazil, people will get married and then they'll move into a house, and their parents will move in with them when they have kids to help them take care of their kids, like the first, you know, year or two, because, you know, it takes a village, and that's a ton of. Usually by that time, the parents aren't working anymore, and they couldn't be happier to do that. And then on top of that, it allows the parents to get that breathing room and, you know, not have to sink a bunch of money into babysitting and stuff like that. So it's just, that's I think the biggest difference in cultures from what I've been able to tell versus like Americans and everything else. But I think hard work is such a relative thing to each individual, because I grew up admittingly like kind of babied in a way, you know what I mean? Like that's how my mom raised me. She just really liked to spoil me and everything like that, and, you know, cook my food and everything. But now I do everything myself. You know, I pay all the bills on my side and I cook myself and everything like that. So it takes the individual himself or herself to actually be able to commit to those changes. But
making that transition from just being baby all the way just being an adult.
Right. Because you could take any person, and I would say it's the person more of themselves, more than the situation. A lot of the times that chooses how to react to that situation to make them who they are. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's perfect. Through the years that you've been lifting, when you think back from when you started to like going to school to where you're at now, having a girlfriend, staying with your parents, what was the one thing that you learned throughout all that entire process that you would like to basically just give out to others as an advice?
I think it's I go through a lot of sort of existential thought. Ever since I was a kid, I always struggled with kind of like the purpose of life and everything like that. And I think it ultimately, the best advice I can give to anyone, as cliche as it sounds, is be in the moment. We can drive ourselves crazy with, our plans or what we have or haven't done or what we need to do. But ultimately, true happiness, I think, is in the moment. And anyone's goal in life should be to be happy, you know what I mean? Or at least at the very least to be content. Maybe being happy is unrealistic all the time, but I think the answer to being content, at the very minimum, is being able to put yourself in the moment. And if you can do that, I think you'll also start learning how to focus on the process at hand. And
Enjoy it a lot more.
right, yeah, you won't jump ahead of yourself and be discouraged when you see how far the goal is if you're just taking it day by day. So
yeah, I mean, it's a perfect summary of what I would give most people, and it makes sense. It's just a lot of us are so stuck in like worrying about so many different things that we have to take care of, but we never are just like in that particular moment to give ourselves time to just breathe. And
yeah,
then when we're done breathing, just focus on something else one at a time. So that's a pretty good thing to bring up. So that was pretty much it. I had a really great time with that, and that was really interesting. Like I said, I wasn't gonna try to like get the whole script thing and then write it down. I just wanted to like just flow natural. It's like meeting someone for the first time and then having a conversation with them, and it just flows a lot more naturally. Where versus texting, it's a little weird. Yeah, but
yeah.
I greatly appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. It's an honor, really.
Yeah, and shout out to Mike.
Shout out to Mike, yeah, for sure. Fangirling over Mike.
Yeah.